Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Donkey Kong Country 3. In the last one we started off the game and now we're entering Murky Mill. One of the more out there examples of a mechanic early on in the game that doesn't exactly feel the best. You see, it's dark in here, and it's a level we're gonna mostly be using Ellie in. And we got rats. And then we got lights. The problem is when there's both lights and rats, because if Ellie sees a rat, it's the usual old generic elephant afraid of mouse bit. Ellie will just turn around and walk away until a certain distance is hit, more or less. Usually the game will give you barrels to either hit these sneaks with, or will have flashing lights for you to avoid the sneaks in, or just give you outright other paths. It's pretty straightforward, but there are times where the timing you need to get through can be a little bit clunky. I should also note there is a warp barrel at the very start of this level at the top left of the elevator, I believe, that you go up at the very start. Love the music here, though. In fact, in general, Donkey Kong Country 3's soundtrack is really good. I think DKC 1 and 2 have better soundtracks, in that they go for some more relaxing tunes here and there, and this game doesn't like to do that as much, but there's some nice funky stuff in here. So at this point, since we're more or less done with the level's main mechanic, we've seen what it's gonna do, let's go over the story of the game's manual, because the game doesn't really do a good job of introducing you to what's happened, which I don't even think the GBA version of this game did, because I think they didn't do the usual added intro cutscene for that version. Although they did change the soundtrack completely in the GBA version, still composed of David Wise, by the way. So that's something Ellie can do, by the way. She can inhale with, I believe it's the Y button, when you're just standing around normally. And that's an example of me seeing the sneaks in the light, so I have to get turned around. It's kind of weird. Doesn't work exactly the best. Back to the manual, though. Here's the story, Trouble Again. Months after the victory against King K.Rool and his army of baddies, the Kongs are still celebrating. Soaking up the sun in their favorite glade on DK Island, Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong often slung up hammocks, hit the music, and spent the day chilling out with banana milkshakes. If she couldn't think of anything better to do, Dixie Kong sometimes joined them. This morning, though, Dixie was surprised to find Diddy's room deserted. Up and about so early? That wasn't like him. It was only as she turned to leave that she spotted the scribbled note on the table. Gone exploring the islands at DK, it read, back tomorrow. Dixie could remember at least 3 times they'd already tried this plan. Each time they never made it further than the beach. That's where she first went looking for them. She realized well before she got to the beach that it was far too quiet rather for Donkey and Diddy to be anywhere near. Surely they hadn't followed one of their harebrained schemes all the way through for once. The sun moved slowly across the sky and melted on the western horizon. Dixie hoped that her friends were having fun wherever they were, and settled into bed with a yawn. When morning came again, another brief swing through the branches confirmed that Diddy was still off on his little expedition. Dixie found herself starting to worry. She could only imagine what kind of trouble Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong were into. As the day crawled on and the night fell on in the jungle, neither of the primates showed up. Again, Dixie could do nothing but head home to bed and hope that they'd be back by dawn. The next day came, but neither Donkey nor Diddy returned. Dixie had to find out what those 2 primates were doing. She made her way to the southern part of DK Island and swam to the nearest mainland. When she got there, she happened upon Wrinkly Kong's home. Wrinkly told Dixie that the boys had passed by, but they hadn't said where they were going. She suggested that maybe the boys visited Funky Kong at his beach shop. As Dixie was leaving, Wrinkly asked if she'd look for the mysterious banana birds. The birds had been seen in the cave across from Funky's rentals, but no one seems to know how to get them out. Dixie agreed and thanked Wrinkly for her help. She set out to see Funky at his shop. By the way, that was Murky Mill. As you can see, relatively straightforward. But now we actually have something completely different. This is Swanky Sideshow. Well, would you believe it? Hello, Kongs! Welcome along to my all-new bonus tent. My show's on their own, it's in every land. The cost of this game, 2 coins in the hand. There are some great prizes on offer today, so come on in and choose to play. Just do that and you're away. So come on, Kongs, and have a go. You could well win. You never know. Swanky Sideshow is our minigame rush for this game, sort of, that allows you to get better rates of bear coins so you can better afford the few things you need them for in the game. We got 3 modes, but at the end of the day, they're all more or less the same. We have to throw.
So you've reached the bonus game then, have you? It's not a simple game of questions and answers this time, though. No, you've got to beat yours truly if you want to win any prizes.
We had to compete against Cranky in hitting a target with the ball. There are 3 types, endurance, head-to-head, and I forget the third one. They more or less change the win conditions. In this case, we need to hit 3 more than Cranky within a certain time frame. As we hit more and more, the red dot gets closer to whichever Kong is hitting, and if the red dot touches them, they win. These can go pretty quickly or pretty slowly.
You fraudster! I'm off to consult my lawyers about this.
Depending on how fast you win, you get certain amounts of bananas and bear coins. I think certain modes might also give more period, but after showing off all three, I tend to just like to do the starting one head-to-head, because it's also the fastest. And now it's time for Belcha's Barn, our first boss fight. And boss fights in DKC3 are, let's say, a bit more unique than 1 and 2. In that, sometimes it's not so much hitting an enemy a certain amount of times, it's hitting the enemy at all. In this case, Belcha's a giant barrel with teeth. Belcha will occasionally spawn out a little bug enemy. You need to stomp on that enemy and throw it into their mouth from the barrel they spawn in. If you time it well, Belcha will be taken out within 2 hits. Because the moment you throw the bug in, he belches and he gets thrown back. It's very much like Crocomire from Super Metroid. In that, when you're trying to hit him, he's moving towards you. And I believe there's a wall of spikes to the far left that can kill you or something, or it's just a wall and he'll just hit you, period. But as you can see, pretty straightforward. A lot of the bosses in this game are like that. Lower hit counts, often hitting them, period, is the puzzle. But now it's time for Barrel Shield Bust Up, probably one of the longer titles in the game for a level. I love the song for the tree levels, by the way. It's really intense, but I really like how it sounds. Now, the big thing to note about this level is that there is, once again, an warp barrel. Right after you pass the O letter, there's going to be a hole in the ground you can drop into that'll just shoot you upwards. If you move left quickly enough, though, there's a warp barrel that'll take you to the end of the level. Now, the big thing about this level is we got monkeys who are throwing what I'm assuming are nuts at me. I hope to God they're nuts. And there's barrel shields along the ropes. Hide behind the barrel shields, and you won't get hit. Some of the levels mechanics in this game are pretty straightforward, and I like those ones the best. Now, let's head back to the manual to finish off that story. Funky Kong was busy working on one of his inventions, and his shop was full of unusual items. He can find a use for anything that he gets his hands on. Funky told Dixie the only visitors he's had all week was Kitty Kong. Funky pointed across the room to the cuddly toddler who was chewing on an old spare tire. Funky asked Diddy if she wanted to take Kitty with her. He was strong and could take good care of himself. Dixie agreed and the two were off. Before they left, Funky told them to keep their eyes peeled for some cool junk. He also told them to visit one of his friendly pals, the Brothers Bear, for help. Once on their travels, Dixie and Kitty discover a whole new collection of Kremlings who seem to have a new master named K.A.O.S. And that's the only intro we have to the villain, huh? Just one word at the literal end of the... Alright. And like many manuals of the time, they gave little bios about the characters from there, like Dixie Kong is in the starring role as she quests across the lands in search of her friend. She has terrific adventuring abilities as she navigates tough terrain with her helicopter spins. And they do bring up some more obscure abilities in the game. There's one I don't even use where you can roll on Kitty with Dixie if you throw him against a wall and then jump on him before he stops moving. There's something you can also do that with barrels in this game. You only need to do it with Kitty if you don't have any barrels left, more or less. And it's never needed. And I think on the Kitty page, Kitty's a portly toddler with lots of power. He can reveal secret areas by breaking down doors and smashing the ground. He's much like Donkey and Diddy Kong in a way. He seems to get into trouble all the time. But the only time they mention the fact that he can jump off of water is in his advantages thing, with one sense saying he can also skim across water by rolling from land and tapping jump as he hits the water. That's it. It's not even like a highlighted ability like roll, climb, run, or swim. They actually kind of go a little low on the bios for the characters compared to some other games here, I feel. Like Funky, they just said he's opened his own boat rental shop, which the Kongs can use for free. No character there at all. Admittedly, Funky doesn't really do much in this game aside from give you boats, compared to the first game where he was kind of cool and also was your transport system. The second game where I think he did the same thing again. 64 where he's a war veteran. Otherwise, the bios are like Swanky, who shows on the road now, played the throwing game to win top quality prizes. Cranky, your opponent in a throwing game, he has the chance to prove he's #1. No sass there whatsoever. The only one that kind of has any kind of character is Wrinkly Save Cave. She stays at home this time, exercising, watching TV, and playing video games. Stop by for a visit and she'll save your game. Speaking of wrinkly, though, time for one of the more interesting Easter eggs in the game at her save cave. Listen to the music.
All you ever seem to do in these games is shoot this or jump on that. Why don't they make games about knitting?
If you look at what she's holding and just below her foot, she's playing an N64. She is playing Mario 64 in particular. And what's interesting about this is that this, I believe, predates Mario 64 by a couple of months. So this was sort of a sneak advertisement for the game. Like, let me see, DKC3 release date. I like this version of the Peach's Castle theme, by the way. It's really nice. DKC3 release date, November 96. What was Mario 64? June of 96. Oh, so DKC3 actually came out afterwards. That's right. I sometimes forget. This is that late of a Super Nintendo game. Because the Super Nintendo was still getting games as, I believe, late as 1999 and 2000 in Japan. But by and large, a lot of major companies stopped making games for it by, I want to say, 97. 96 was like the last year for a couple of things. Now, this is perhaps one of my least favorite levels in the game. This is Riverside Race. And this is perhaps one of the most complex levels in the game in terms of what we have to do here. In fact, I'll be visiting this level twice just so we can talk about it in better detail. But there's a counter on the bottom right, and then there's bees chasing you. The bees chasing you is the more prevalent mechanic, as they'll never stop. The only times they actively stop is whenever you're in water, I believe, because they won't try to follow you there. But if you stay still too long, you will get hit, so you need to rush through it anyway. The timer on the bottom right is related more to getting 100%, because in order to get everything, you need to beat the level within a certain time frame. They construct the level in such a way that you can bounce off of enemies, through enemies, or off the water in such a way that you can get a very certain time very easily. But you need to be very careful, all the same, because the bees are relentless. Also, we have one of the game's first and only invincibility barrels in this stage. There's only a couple throughout the game that you get to ever use, unless you really look for them, I believe. And they allow you to bounce off of enemies, which is needed to get to the second bonus barrel of this stage. By the way, I should note, by and large, every level has 2 bonuses, unless otherwise marked. There's 1 or 2 that have 3, and I think there might be 1 that has 1 from memory. 2 is the box standard amount, though. If you are going through a level and you've only found 1, there's probably going to be another, usually. I do find that in the game, they try to give harder levels easier to find bonuses, like they're more directly in the path. It's just actively reaching them without getting, say, hit. That's the problem. It's the slower levels they try to be a bit more, I don't want to say dickish, but god dang it with the placement. With that said, I am waiting here because in order to get the DK coin here, we need to rush left with Kitty, I keep doing that, and use his water bounce technique once again to clear the water and get to the top left of this particular area. Thankfully, the bees will not chase you behind the goal post, so you can use that to your advantage to get over here in any kind of safety. But be careful all the same, because sometimes if your controller messes up, who knows. Also, the bees just spawn up there. So if you jump into them, you're gonna get hit like I just did. Whoops. Also, I should note, I believe that stage also has a warp barrel. I think it's before, like, the first water, and, like, you have to team throw Dixie to the top of the water or something like that. It's one I never go for, because I think if you use it, it invalidates your speed time on the bottom right, so you can't do too well there. But now it's time for Squeals on Wheels. The mechanic here is the sneaks in the wheels. This is a tofu mechanic, though, because you need to take out the sneaks with barrels in order to stop them from rolling the wheel, which depowers those meters you can see to the left or right of them usually, which will then open certain doors. But additionally, you can stand on top of the wheels and use them as platforms, but I do believe you are forced left or right depending on which direction the wheel itself is going, so you need to be a bit careful. Also, getting past the buzzes here can be a little bit annoying. Part of having difficulty hitting those is on me, admittedly, because my controller has this problem I've noticed when I've tried to play the DKC games, rather, not just DKC3, where It'll let go of the barrel when I'm still clearly holding the button, and it might have to do with maybe my finger rolling on the button slightly and loosening the pressure a little bit, but still clearly holding it, so maybe I'm holding my buttons too hard. But it gets annoying later on in the game, because barrel holding is very important in a Donkey Kong Country, and it's how you damage a lot of the later game boss fights. By and large, only a few of the bonus rooms in the game, by the way, have like super strict time limits, like you need to do this within the 10 seconds it gives you because you need every second sort of thing. And when those happen, they're usually also very fast bonuses. And unlike I believe Donkey Kong Country 1, if you fail a bonus, I think this was also a thing in DKC 2, if you fail a bonus, you can just go back to the bonus barrel and try again. So you're never screwed out of a bonus. It's just a factor of, oh, I gotta get back to it. Okay then. Oh, I know, the wheels don't roll. I was just thinking of that bonus because there's still sneaks in the wheels, that's right. One thing I will say is pretty consistent in this game, though, and it's how inconsistent it can be. This was also sort of a thing in DKC 1 and 2, less so DKC 2 from memory. Level length, and particularly when it comes to this recording, because for some bonuses I need to take things a bit slowly in terms of getting them, just so I don't accidentally miss them. Other times, the levels themselves literally move at the speed of sound, it feels, for the game. So, I don't have much choice when it comes to that, I just have to remember where things are. Because I will say easily, DKC 3 is the game in the series I have the least experience with. DKC 1 is the one I've been playing the longest, but nowadays if I go to a DKC, I really am just playing 2. Just because I feel it does the most interesting things with its stages not being too obtuse at times, which this game feels like it can. With that said, I should note this level also does have a warp barrel. It's right after the first door. You need to throw Dixie to the top left corner of that room that you're in after the door. And that's usually what it comes down to. Throw one of your Kongs up to a top left or right of a room very early on in the level. It's not like, say, DKC 1, where you enter a cave level, go back to the cave you just came in from to warp like halfway through. I'm not sure if I prefer the half level or the full level warps, though. I think it would depend on the game, the level, and what it's trying to accomplish. Like, say, if Mega Man games had warps in their levels, I would prefer them probably to be a warp past this section kind of thing, like if you know the specific secret, so you can get past a harder section of level with some more deadly mechanics, like more spikes or something like that. Versus a full level warp where it's like, well, half the fun of a Mega Man game is playing through the level and figuring out what enemies do and figuring out how to platform around in it. Why would you skip it? You know what I mean? Whereas in this, you could, say, get past some annoying mechanics you don't like to deal with. I guess it really depends on how far a game tries to stretch itself and what it defines as its main mechanics, I suppose? Maybe? I don't know why, I love Dixie's stance when she's holding a barrel. There's something about it that's just very, you're approaching me kind of level. I don't know why, but it's funny to me. And now we just need to jump through here, and we're gonna fall all the way back through to the very bottom of the level, and where we can find the entrance. And our next animal buddy, I think this thing's name is Carrie? It acts as an active hitbox, so you can take out things like the birds, no problem, but need to avoid other enemies to avoid getting hit. I believe if you take that carry all the way to the carry cancel sign, which if you hit an animal buddy canceling sign, they usually drop an item. I believe you'd get a blue balloon, which is 2 1-ups, I think? Or is it 3? I can never remember the color coordination. Alright, time for Race to 25. This is a pretty straightforward version of Swanky Sideshow. Just get the 25 points before Cranky does. This is definitely the type of this minigame that takes the longest. I should note, though, some minor strats that you can help you, like, figure things out. You don't need to hit the target exactly, you just need to hit the cardboard thing, period. So you can say hit the Kremling in the face and it'll still count as a point. Dixie and Diddy do... Kitty, I'll keep on doing that for some reason. They do throw from the right side of their sprite, so try to, say, align yourself more with the right side of the targets in order to get better accuracy. And you're going to want to do this in some amount anyways, because this mechanic does come back in a different form later on in the game that's a little more prevalent to beating it. And I believe depending on how long things last, Cranky's AI will decide to just be more aggressive. Other times he'll be missing more often. It really just depends on luck, I find.
You only had to blow over any targets from the fall over.
Sure, I did, Cranky, sure. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 3, we're going to be continuing on in the second world, the name of which completely escapes me. And I don't think we're going to be quite finishing it, but we're definitely getting close. See you guys then.